Hey, and welcome back to the Growing Pains podcast. I'm your host, Alyson Caffrey, and today I am sitting down with the incredible Jenny Roth. Jenny and I had an awesome conversation around copy, around being able to really speak to the problems that your clients or your perfect clients are actually facing. We talked a lot about her journey in leaping and actually working for herself when she had three little ones at home. Jenny helps female founders create wealth and surpass their launch goals with amazing sales copy that gets noticed. As the writer and strategist behind hundreds of launches and funnels, Jenny's copywriting process is rooted in words that build relationships and leave your clients feeling confident and zero buyer's remorse about working with you. Jenny's also a mom to three daughters. She's got high school running coaching under her belt, which is super duper fun. And she's a big believer in staying in with a good book, as I'm sure you can imagine. I had such a wonderful conversation with Jenny. She's such a great soul. Talking with her was so calming. And she just brings this lightheartedness and confidence to copy. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you inside. Jenny, welcome to Growing Pains. I am so excited to have you here.
Hi, Alyson. Thank you. I am just so honored I get to spend this time with you today. First, you were on my show and yours, and it's been so fun to actually sit down and get to hear from you and know everything that you know about marketing and operations. So I'm just grateful. Thank you for having me.
Getting to know folks in this venue. I say this all the time, but I feel like this is almost like my little business therapy. It's so nice to get to know moms, hear about what they've been successful with, what they're still struggling with. It makes me feel not alone. But for the folks listening who have not yet maybe heard my guest appearance on your show, tell me a little bit about your business and the family that you have at home.
Oh, of course. Yeah, thank you. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Roth, and I am a copywriter. So, I have been a copywriter for, I should count my years, maybe 4 or 5 years full time. I live in the Midwest. I'm married to a farmer. So, we live in a tiny town, literally 300 people live in my town. Okay. So, my kids go to school, 8 people in their class, small town America. And so, yeah, I love being a copywriter. How I got here, I guess. My husband and I had 3 girls within I think less than 4 years. So we got married. Yeah, we got married super young and then had our 3 girls. And so I can share more about my journey into opening a business and what that looked like with kids. But right now my kids are older. So I have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. My husband's still farming. And so I'm a copywriter. I work from home when my kids are in school Monday through Thursday, just down the street. So that's kind of where I'm at today.
That is super, super fun. I wonder, were you born and raised in South Dakota?
Yeah, my husband and I were both born and raised here, and kind of one of those situations, knew each other growing up, and you know how you 17, 18 years old, couldn't wait to get away, right? We couldn't wait to get away and moved away and did all the things you do as a young person. And then when we had, you might appreciate this story, Alyson, but when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, Grace, I was working a full-time job. I was a translator for a company. And I was doing everything to save up my maternity leave, everything. I mean, I did not take a day off entire pregnancy. I swear, I wanted that full 12 weeks. I don't believe it was all paid, but you're able to take 12 weeks, I think, and some of it's paid. So, was expecting Grace, and we were just kind of looking at daycares and trying to figure out what's life going to look like with this baby when we both work so much, and just trying to figure this whole thing out, trying to save up for my maternity leave. And, kind of when we were expecting her and shortly after Grace was born, my husband has always loved farming, definitely not an office person, has to always be, outside doing. And so he always kind of wanted to come back here and farm. And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, what would be really cool is if we moved back to South Dakota and raised our family, small town, grandparents, cousins all around us, slow, easy living. And so Grace is about 3 months old and we moved back to South Dakota, and we kind of told ourselves we'll try it for 5 years, but Grace is 15. So we've stayed and our kids are happy and we're happy here too. So yeah.
That's really sweet, honestly.
Yeah.
Was that the first inkling maybe that you had that maybe traditional work in an office wasn't for you? I know you said that about your husband, but I know so many moms who have either started businesses on the heels of their kiddos or it just became so clear that the normal kind of working schedule, quote unquote, right, wasn't going to be conducive for them as a mom? Was that something that you were thinking about then, or that didn't come into play for a little while?
Yeah, no, 1,000%. I was like, what, how is this going to work? We were looking at daycares, and I even worked at a daycare part-time along with my full-time job. And I was just trying to figure this out. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, so I get to work at 7:30. So I drop the baby off at 7. So then I get home at 4. Then I pick the baby up at 4:30. And then like, everything you read says the baby goes to bed at like 7. And you're like, what? And I'm just trying to figure out how I was going to do it. But, I didn't have her yet, but I was trying to figure it out. I was even looking at ideas like, could I start my own at-home daycare? Like, what am I going to do here? And so Grace was born. I had that maternity leave, and I kind of knew that I just had this feeling. I was like, someone's going to have to take care of this girl. It's like it's a full-time job. And I was like, I think I want to do it. Like, I think I want to be the one to do it. Like, I want to be here for her and enjoy. I don't know. I was young. I was 23 years old, but I just had this feeling like, I think I'm the best person for this job or whatever. And I want to do it well. And so that was another reason why we moved back to South Dakota, because my husband and I figured, it's small town, expenses are cheaper, housing is cheaper. We kind of were thinking, okay, well, maybe if we move back, we can make this work so that you can stay at home with Grace. So yeah, that was definitely one of my first indications that I don't know if I can do this with my kids, like go back to work full time. And then her sisters came, and yeah, things just kind of snowballed from there into a business.
So when did you start working for yourself as a copywriter, and kind of the ages of your kiddos?
Yeah. So again, we had the girls right in a row. And for a while, I was just stay-at-home mom, along with doing in-home daycare in our home for a couple extra kids, just to make a few extra spending money and things like that for our family. So I was really lucky to be able to do that. When my youngest daughter was about, I don't know, maybe a few months old, she was a good sleeper. Thank goodness. When your littlest is a good sleeper, like what kind of blessing is that? But she was a good sleeper. And so I was having these moments where I was at home, and people were sleeping through the night. People were napping at the same time. And I was kind of coming up for air just a little bit. Maybe Veda was older than a few months. I don't know. But it was that point where I was coming up from air just a little bit of like, okay, I have some time when the kids go to bed. I have some time at nap time where they're playing, they're doing things on their own. I have some time for myself. What am I going to do with that time? And I remember like cleaning my house and like scrolling Facebook and trying to plant like a garden, like I don't and like doing all these things and thinking like, Jen, you need to sit down and figure out like what you're going to do. And so I remember I wrote down basically what I want to do with these pockets of my time. And it was like, I remember I had conditions on it. Like, it's got to help other people. I have to be able to do it from home. And I also had on there, I would love it to involve writing. It's just always been good at writing, always enjoyed it. Right. So I have like zero expectations. Like, so I think one thing that is maybe it was a blessing in disguise. I never went into it saying, I'm going to build a business, right? I wasn't like going into it that way. I was like, what can I do that can like help people? I can do it from home writing, and maybe I can make a little bit of extra cash, right? Like my thing was my oldest, toddler, there's dance classes here in the summer. And I thought maybe I could make $200 a month and be the one paying for her dance classes. Like, that's just like where I was at with it. So I started pitching myself to local magazines, saying like, hey, like I have like zero, I like do not have a journalism degree or anything. And I'm just like, hey, and this is who I am, and interested if you need an article writer. I must have sounded crazy. And one took me up on it, and I started writing articles for this local magazine. And I loved it. I could do it from home. And I quickly moved my way up to becoming the editor of that magazine. And I negotiated so that I could do it from home. So of course I'd have to I did a lot of phone interviews, Zoom, face-to-face over the computer interviews like this for stories. But I also traveled a little bit around the community, around the surrounding area for interviews. But I was mostly doing it from home. And then from there, I was like, okay, we wrote a lot about businesses. Like we would interview business owners, tell their story, share what they did. And as we were doing this, business owners would write to this magazine and say stuff like, thank you so much for sharing this story about our business. We're getting like a hit in traffic. We're getting more clients. We're getting so many compliments. People are finding us and they didn't know what we did before. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. Like I didn't expect that. I was raised by entrepreneurs. My dad had a business my whole life and he still does. And so it kind of like that stuck with me. I was like, what? Like I can use writing to like actually help a business owner. Like I had no idea. And I just kind of figured out that this was called copywriting. And I became so intrigued and started taking classes and courses and learning. And at the same time, people, because I'm writing for these magazines, are like, hey, do you also write websites? Do you also write blogs? Do you do this? And I would just be like bold enough to say, yeah. And then I would figure it out like on the fly, and that's kind of, so at this time, my girls are still small. I'm homeschooling them. Actually, when they were little, I homeschooled them. So I'm doing the magazine really part-time and also doing like a select few copywriting clients part-time while they were small and while we were homeschooling.
My gosh, that must have been a lot. How did you keep your boundaries at that time? Because I'm sure, especially with everything being very new and exciting, and then clients reaching out to you, right, or potential clients being like, can you help me? Did you have to turn anybody away, or did you have a realization moment at any point where you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I took on a little too much?
Oh my gosh, like that's the story of my life is, oh my gosh, I took on too much because I got excited and I wanted to do it and I wanted to say yes to everything. So I wish I could share with your listeners like a really great like strategy for having boundaries, but I don't think I did. Like I was applying for copywriting jobs. I was just doing whatever I could in the pockets of my day. So nap time, whoosh, like I'm sitting down 2 hours of work, bedtime, 2 to 3 hours of work, early morning, 2, maybe 3 hours of work. Like I was just like, when I wasn't with my kids, I was like writing because it was awesome to be able to make that extra income for my family. And I think I don't know where I got this sense, but in my whole, like I've always loved to write and things, but I never ever thought you could make an income or a living doing that. And so it was just like, wow, I always thought if you wanted to write, that'd be something cute you did on the side, look at that cute starving artist thing, so like, I don't know. I loved it. And I was busy and I was super overwhelmed a lot of the time. Worked on Saturdays when my husband was home, Sundays when my husband was home, but I kept plugging away because I think like we do as women, I loved both. Like I did, like I loved what I was doing. And at the same time, I loved being with my girls, So yeah, it was crazy. I could tell you crazy stories not crazy stories, but there's so many things like thinking everyone's down for a nap and then you go on a client call and then like, your toddler runs in crying, I had like a million of those stories and situations. It was far from perfect. Looking back, I would say it was probably very difficult. I don't know if I would take it on now. I don't know. That's the reality of it.
There's definitely a tenacity like in that early stage that I honestly still feel like I'm in to some degree, right?
Yeah.
My kids are 2 and 4. Everything is kind of chaotic. And I don't know if you feel like this, Jenny, but sometimes it's easy or easier comparatively to like stack stuff on to an already chaotic environment, right?
Yeah.
So for us, like, over this summer, a lot of our listeners know like I moved with my family. And a lot of like outside looking in was saying to me, Allie, I don't know how you're doing this. Like, how are you not just like ripping your hair out? How are you guys just not falling apart at the seams? And that was always my response as I was like, life with a 2 and a 4-year-old just is chaotic. And so when you start to add additional chaos, it for whatever reason doesn't feel as additionally chaotic. Was that your experience when you were kind of like finding those pockets of time? The girls were really little, you were homeschooling.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it just kind of goes back to like, I really wanted that other thing for me. And it's hard to say it out loud. I think sometimes for women, it's like you feel selfish or something for wanting something else for you. But I really wanted it for me. And I really wanted to, I was a stay-at-home mom because we had 3 littles and I wanted to do it, but also like giving up my job and like my like sense of, I don't know, is freedom the right word? But do you know what I mean? Like my sense of
Mhm.
autonomy, like by not working was not something that I went into gracefully by any means. Like it was a very hard decision. Like even though I wanted it and it's like a huge blessing, like it's hard to explain, but like to be able to make your own money as a woman too, like I wanted that, right? Like I also wanted to feel like if anything, if I need to, like I've got this, right? Like if I need to work, I have at least something, you know, God forbid something would happen to Aaron or whatever. Like I wanted that deeply for myself. And so, and I still do. That's still one of my main drivers of my business. Like I have daughters watching me, like, I mean, I watched my own mom and aunts and grandmas, you know, like have something that way. So I think that just kind of really drove me forward. And I was really excited about it. And I just really wanted both. Yeah. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
I hear it in your voice, Jenny, and you touched
Mhm.
on it too, that like, sometimes as moms we feel like we don't like deserve, or it's selfish, or whatever that is. But I actually do feel, and I know that a lot of women who we've had on the show and moms that I've spoken to about this is like, there is this sense of being able to be a better parent when you have kind of those other things, right? When you're able to, flex your creativity and make your own money and connect
Yeah.
with other people and have your own thing on the side. Like I show up more presently with my
Mhm.
children versus just being there and then thinking about all the things that like I'm not doing, or the
Mhm.
areas of my life where I feel unfulfilled, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's so hard because I also sometimes feel guilty. I'm sure this is the case for you as well. Like in busier
Mhm.
seasons with the business, right? You maybe think like, oh, I didn't spend a ton of time with my kiddos today because I had this really important deadline that I needed to meet. And so I think having some boundaries, or at least just a finger on the pulse of like
Mhm.
how you're doing, right? Like how much time you are spending. I loved that when you said you were returning to work, you created like some criteria, right? Like it has to
Mhm.
be helpful. I have to be able to do it from home. And I'd love it if it included writing. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think we do that enough. Like, try to define some of the criteria for how we're working and how we're spending time with our family. So I think these stories that you've been sharing are
Mhm.
just so wonderful.
Thank you.
So talk to me about oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, talk to you about the business now. So you've kind of gotten through the thick of, those initial stages of what am I doing, kind of getting your feet wet in the article writing and writing website copy and all those sorts of things. So what does it look like today?
Yeah, I love it. So when my kids were a little older, like my oldest maybe going into middle school, just had a huge life change. Without going into super details, like my husband wasn't well. And so I kind of like the business was making like a good part-time income, right? My copywriting business, I had let go of the magazine and I was just taking on copywriting clients and homeschooling my three kids. And my husband wasn't well. And so he was sick. And so I was even more afraid than ever that if something happened to him, it would all come back. I was like, this part-time income is great. However, if Aaron's income disappears, it's not enough to pay our bills unless we're like eating ramen. You know what I mean? Like it's not enough. So
Mhm.
my girls were also getting older. So we made the decision they'd go to school, which we're so lucky. Like there's a small school down the street, and that's been wonderful for them. They're happy there, and it's been good, you know. So my girls went to school full time, and I really sat down. This was about 5 years ago, right? 4 or 5 years ago. I sat down and I was like, okay, like either this thing is making a full time income or I'm getting a job, right? Which would be
Mhm.
very difficult. Honestly, a lot of women around here make their own way because I'm like 40 minutes from the nearest big grocery store or Walmart. You know what I mean? Like I'm in
Mhm.
rural America.
Mhm.
So, like, I don't, without like nursing teaching degree, like I don't have a lot of like, I'm like, I don't want to drive an hour to and from work every day. I'll miss everything. So I was like, basically it kind of came down to like, I've got to make this work. And so I did. Yeah. And so like the last 4 years, I've grown the business substantially. So it's me and I have one writer out here who helps me part-time. She's incredible. And I have a podcast editor. So I have like a tiny little team, I guess, of contractors helping me out. And we serve, I've dove in to learn everything and help clients in several niches, but we really serve female founders, we say with a lot of heart and epic goals to reach like their stretch goals, right? And so we really help people with launch copy, sales pages, and emails. When you have like a big goal, like I want to sell my program without discovery calls, the sales page has to do it. Or like, I'm ready for that funnel, the sales page has to sell. I'm ready for that big launch. Like I'm ready for my launch to make me a lot, I'm ready for a really like profitable launch. That's kind of where I come in. And that's where I've been helping women for the last, full time for almost 5 years. And so what it looks like today is me working on one-time projects like that, sales page, email sequences, launches. And then we have really few like boutique, like retainer clients, I guess you would say, that we do like ongoing email strategy and copy for them on a monthly basis. Yeah. And with that, I also have a membership. So like I've grown a little bit from service provider. I have a membership called Email Insiders, and you get email templates and email marketing strategy and email coaching support and all these things. So I'm just really grateful that I am able to do this Monday through Thursday. Usually, of course, nothing's ever perfect. Sometimes I have to work a Saturday morning or whatever while the kids are in school. And that's where we're at today, I guess. Yeah, it's been crazy.
Isn't it so incredible sometimes that you
Yeah.
like don't believe that you can do it until you're like doing it. And then all of a sudden you like pick your head up and you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
I'm here. I did this.
I know. Yeah, my husband and I said that the other day. He's like, you realize, like he said crazy, but in a good way. He's like, you realize how crazy this is, right? Like you just like gutted out this room and we're like, this is now my office and I work here from home. And like, you're just like, this is happening. He's like, it is incredible. Like the things that we can do as women, like it's never lost on me, which is why I like writing for female founded businesses so much. So
Well, talk to me about, so I'm so curious about like launching as well too, because I think, and we were talking about this just before we pressed record, like I see so many women specifically, but I mean, male entrepreneurs too, doing these launches and really bringing like a hot and heavy, like marketing strategy to market and then like opening the doors to a program or something like that. And I think it's such a cool way to build trust, right? You like mark your calendar. It's like a little virtual live event, like where you would
yeah,
like proverbially host like somebody in your town for like a couple of days or whatever. And
yeah,
like you get to kind of create that feeling online. And so talk to me about like that launch process a little bit and like how copy really fits in, because I imagine that there's probably like a good balance or sweet spot between having conversations like this or doing like masterclass presentations or something, and then being able to like actually write really incredible sales pages, really incredible emails, and nurture your audience in that way.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like launching, this could be, I mean, we could probably talk about launching for days. So there's like so
Yes.
many different strategies and so many things that I see people doing. And I'm trying to think of what I can share with your listeners that I see working across the board, just to give them a sense of what I see. So I think one thing for sure that I see working really well in launching right now is adding on like personal components to it. And so what that looks like is personally reaching out to people and being like, hey, I have this mastermind. Like, let's just use a mastermind. I have this mastermind. It starts next month or in January 2025, whatever. I thought of you, right? So you're reaching out to like past clients, people in your world, whatever, people who follow you, who you also follow and are like, man, I think I could really help her, reaching out to those people with that really kind reach out. Like, I have this thing coming up. This is what it is. I thought of you. This is why. Are you in? Like, can I tell you more? So I see personal reach outs, which I know has nothing to do with copy. We can talk about like copy, but I just like across the board, if I was giving everyone launch strategy, that would be one. Another thing that I did in my last launch for my membership and that I just did helped a client with, and she was able to fill like her mid-high ticket group program, help with this too, is we are sending all the launch emails and we're doing all the things and we're getting clicks and we're doing all the things. And then with that, every time, you can see in the back end of your email service provider, right? She would see like who's clicking on the sales page. And we did like the most simplest reach out to people who clicked on her sales page. Like, hey, I noticed that you're following my launch of this program. I'm just curious, like, do you have any questions for me? Or is there anything I can do to support you in joining? And then sometimes like people come back and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I was going to join. Thank you. I just forgot. Or like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I just had this question, and then she can answer it. Like you can answer that with a Loom or a voice note or just an email back, and people are like, oh my gosh, thank you. And they sign up. It's like crazy. So I recommend that to just about everybody. And then another thing, especially if you're launching a program for like the first or second time and you're not like a big name or something like that in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give an example. So I recently helped a girl who she manages podcasts for people, and she was making her first course, right? Like, and like teaching you how to build and manage your own podcast, right? So like for her done for you to the group coaching program, essentially. And we kind of figured out, like, wouldn't a beautiful launch strategy be to she has all these people that she's her done for you clients who like rave about her, right? But she's like, but I've never done the group coaching program. It's like, but like your clients rave about you. So we reached out to her clients and we're like, hey, can you help me share about my group program? So they can share it on her behalf and be like, my podcast manager, Jay, is launching this group program. I cannot tell you everything she does for me. It is so great. Like if you want to launch your own podcast, like check her out. And so like using the people in your community, the people who are already like singing your praises and personal reach outs for launching, especially if you are just like a normal sized business owner, I can't say enough about it. So that's one launch strategy advice I think I would like everyone to know.
I love that. So get personal and get folks that you've gotten results for to sing loudly about the things that they've transformed. I really like the elegant nature of that advice because it's something that, when we were talking even on your show, Jenny, we were talking about some really simple things that folks could do to like front load their marketing before maternity leave. And one of the things I think is true about really good marketing is that it's usually not like super trendy or like some strategy that maybe no one's ever heard of that closes a whole bunch of deals or gets a bunch of leads in the door. It's really like the unsexy work that's almost unscalable, right? Doing these personal reach outs and hitting some of your old clients up and being like, hey, could you share about your transformation, or just sending that personal note? It feels so unscalable, I guess. So I personally have found that this has the most fruit in my business. And I think some folks, how do I put it? They kind of stand against like the unscalable marketing strategies. So what do you say to those folks, especially, right? Like a lot of copy and a lot of sales pages, I'm sure have been written on ChatGPT because that's the scalable option, right?
Yeah.
So where can we leverage like things that are able to scale, but not lose some of those personal touches, the things that don't scale and the things that ultimately end up building the most trust with the people that come into our programs?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I could see how personal reach outs aren't scalable. At the same time, I have plenty of clients who like have a team member going through that sales page and doing it. I think it works if, for your small businesses. Of course, if you're getting like hundreds of clicks on a sales page, is a personal follow-up for every one of those going to be, or like a feasible thing for you to do? Probably not, but you also probably don't need to because you're getting hundreds of clicks to your sales page. So I don't really know if I have advice for that. Like if you don't want to do the personal reach outs and you're using like your copy, I think it kind of, again, it just comes back to like your email, like your marketing strategy and like what you like to do. So some people, your copy can be a really, really good page for like your masterclass, your webinar, whether that's live or evergreen, and you get people in there and you sell them on that, right? And then you're like, the fork with emails, I don't want to do it either. You either buy my class or you don't. Like I have clients who literally do that, and that works for them and that's what they like to do. And I also have clients who are like, I don't like doing live trainings. Like I'm not into momentum events. Like it's not my thing. And then we sell by sending really, really good emails, and we send a lot of emails. Yeah. And we let people know like, hey, I'm launching this thing. It's going to happen between November 1st and November 10th. And that time I'm going to be sending you emails about this, this, and this. Here's why you want to sign up. And we just treat people as if you're like a brick and mortar store owner and they came in and they were like, hey, can you tell me about this thing? Like we answer questions and we tell them about our process and our approach and how every element of the program can help them. Like, I mean, and that's just like the personality of the business owner, right? Like we want to do it all email based, right? So it just depends on what you like to do and how you like to show up.
What's a good best practice for how often we should be talking to our list?
That's a good question. I get asked that question all the time. I always tell people, like, when you think about your email list, think about like two things. And I learned this from a different copywriter. I didn't make this up, but like your email list has to serve two purposes. It has to serve like what's in it for your reader, right? So are they coming there for like a daily quote, a daily recipe? Like, why are they on this list? Like, you have to know that, and they have to know that when they sign up, right? So what are they coming for? If it's like a weekly business tip, marketing strategy, whatever they're coming for, that's one piece of it. But then also, how does your email list serve you, right? So are you using your email list as like a creative outlet, or are you using your email list like, and that's okay, like you can totally do that, or is your email list for you like want to be your main sales driver? And if it's that will determine help determine how many emails you send and how often you stay in touch with your list. I always tell people, when in doubt, a weekly email newsletter. Okay. Like that's like pretty standard. You send a really good weekly email. And then when you launch, people, you know, they know who you are. They're not like, who is that? And if you can add in more, I think that's great. And if you want to add in more than the weekly, I always say then your next thing could be, if you're branching out and you want to send 2 emails a week, I think the next email to add in would be client success stories, right? So your one great email, client success stories, and then I think that's a good place to start.
That's so incredible. I really appreciate this look at email, because I think, listen, I've said this on our interview together, but I find that list growth and revenue growth are coupled metrics.
Yeah.
Like I've always seen that folks with bigger email lists have higher revenue. It's just trends the same. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, of course, but I think that our email list and how it grows is directly correlated with like the value and the goodwill that we're putting into the marketplace, right? Like, are we giving our audience content for free, right? Like no transaction necessary to actually move the needle for them in a meaningful direction. And to me, an email list shows that, especially if you have higher ticket services. Building your email list is something that basically shows that you are actually inviting lots of goodwill into your community.
I love that. That's a great analogy. Yeah, that's for sure. I'm not really, there's lots of like social media is not reliable, and email is the way to go. And I've never really like bought into that, because I feel like there's some people that I follow on Instagram that I'm like, if I can make short form videos like you, I would never send an email. Like obviously they're so good at it, Like I think email can be a really, like, if you're looking for a really great way, like you own it. Of course, we all know that, right? So it's like really cool. There's no rules or any like algorithms and stuff like that. Like, so if you're looking for a way, like, okay, people are in my world, how can I like reach out to them and like just have a really like great marketing strategy? I think email can definitely be that. Yeah. Cause you can do anything. You can make it your own totally. So yeah.
I super, super appreciate that. So what's next? What are you excited about, on the horizon for your family and your business? We're here at the very start of Q4, which is so wild that it's already Q4. But what are you excited about for the rest of this year and for 2025?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for this question. I haven't been asked this. For my business, I'm really excited. I'm making like I don't know what's the term for it, like high leverage, like blog posts. I'm working on creating a suite of content that I can use to sell like my higher ticket offers. And then my goal is to have somebody be able to repurpose and pin it for me after I have the really great content created, like a suite of like 12 to 20 posts that are just like working for me forever. So like that's like a huge like me project I have right now in my business. And then in my family, we always travel. We don't always, but last winter we traveled with our kids over Christmas, and it was awesome. So we're working on planning like our next trip over the holidays with our girls, and really looking forward to that. So good things coming.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Jenny, if anyone listening wants to follow along with what you do, get in touch, get some of your tips on just creating amazing copy in your business, where can they get in touch with you and follow along?
Yeah, thank you. My website is just jennyrothcopywriting.com. I have a podcast, the Email Marketing Podcast. And then I would love to give everyone it's called a free relationship-based email marketing strategy and template collection. So you get like 6 email templates, and I have videos walking you through how to customize them for your business. And you could like rotate through these 6 emails like every single month and just have like one of the most like conversation starting, client serving, like email marketing strategies in your niche. So yeah, and that's free. So
That is amazing. Honestly, get your hands on that gift because sometimes I don't know if other moms listening feel this way, but sometimes if you don't have a really clear email marketing strategy and things feel nice and rhythmic, then sometimes you just forget to email your list, right? Nobody's
yeah.
banging down your door unless they are, in which case then you do probably already have a really great email marketing strategy. But people on your list aren't reaching out being like, where's your weekly newsletter? It didn't get sent this week or this, that, or the other, right? We have to really be proactive with that. So I appreciate that. I'll definitely drop that link in the show notes. Jenny, what encouragement, advice, or final words do you have for the moms listening who are in the thick of it, right? We're growing businesses, we're raising families, we've got naps and dinner to prepare and houses to clean and laundry to fold and all the things. Plus, we're like, making big waves in the things that we do and exercising our creativity and our brains and leading teams. And, we're all just doing the best we can. So what final words do you have to say to everybody listening here?
Oh, that's a cool question. I love it. I think I would just keep going and that you are doing enough, like more than enough. Like everything you're already doing is, yeah, you're more than enough. I think I definitely struggle with thinking like, but I could do more. I should do more for my family, for my home, for my business, for my health, blah, blah, blah. Like there's always that like, could I be doing better? Could I be doing more? And I kind of always have to bring myself back to like, you've always been enough. What you're doing right now is more than enough and just keep going one day at a time.
That is excellent advice. I heard something recently that was like the difference between a successful business owner and someone who didn't make it is just time. Like they just
Honestly.
stopped. And I was like, it's interesting, right? Because we have to just do the hardest thing that there ever is to do, which is like be patient and trust and keep going and grit through the hard times and celebrate the good ones. So I think that's such good and elegant advice. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate you joining me today.